Men of Reddit, what is a time you felt creeped out by a woman? Time for a Halloween story. One year, I bought a cheap cow costume from Target and wired it up with LEDs to make a cowboy costume. A lot of the LEDs ended up in the udder, which was somewhat unfortunately located right over my crotch. I went to a party that had a bunch of drunk nerd girls at it. I have never had my crotch grabbed by so many complete strangers before. Resistance is futile. I'm a 6'6", 340-pound bearded Canadian man. I was bouncing, working security, at a concert when a 5'9", 350-pound-ish girl told me she wanted to stick all of me in her tea. The weirdest part was the look on her old man's boyfriend's face as he looked up at her, and I. The crazy crap some people say is just too funny sometimes. Despite of how it's portrayed on a lot of pornographic media, I got really creeped out by a woman offering to blow me behind an alley for free. I declined and fricked off. When I was in college I had a job standing in front of a well-known clothing chain. Killer job, great pay, a bit boring, but paid for a ton of my college. Man, did that job bring out the creeps in ladies though. Had a lady stop, suck air through her tongue and teeth, look me up and down, and then grunt. I crap you not grunt. Another one licked my arm, in front of her daughter. Another one told her husband boyfriend that she wanted me for her birthday and the guy then tried to negotiate a price for my night. Lots of others but those really stuck out. In high school, this horrendous looking chick MSG'd me on Facebook and asked if I'd help her with math and that she'd do anything for me. I clearly knew where she was going with this, but I decided to make use of the situation by politely telling her how my dorm would need vacuuming and that I've got a lot of dishes to be done. She proceeded to straight out say how she wanted to give me a BJ and told me everything about her semi-abusive childhood and early age lovemaking experimentations. Needless to say, I kept my mathematical information to myself. I'll carry my mathematical secrets to the grave. Erotic Bulbasaur probably. One girl would text me every single day that she had a crush on me and would tell me at school. After I had told her multiple times I was not interested. Eventually I just told her I was gay to get her off me despite not being gay. Dude, get yourself a gay buddy. I helped a guy in HS out with that same deal. B, get off my boyfriend's back, works amazingly well to get rid of crazy women. Had a female friend drug and violate me. It's as freaked up as it sounds. I knew something wasn't right when I woke up and it took me about 2 weeks, not sure on the exact amount, to piece it all together. A girl at my school had drawn rather explicit fanfic of me and my best friends. As it turns out I was not flattered when I discovered it like she thought I would be. Erotic friend fiction. During my grad school graduation party, this girl who I found repulsive in every way was really drunk and kept trying to make out with me, like coming up and trying to stick her tongue in my mouth. No matter what I did and how far I tried to get away from her, she'd find me and try to stick her tongue in my mouth. I briefly considered slapping her in the face, but figured that wouldn't go down well in a crowded bar. I ended up having to go home early because she wouldn't leave me alone. I matched with this girl on Tinder. She had flattering pics and everything and I swipe right generously. We start talking, and it turns out she goes to my gym. We swap Snapchats. I figure out which girl is her, and she looks little like her Tinder pics. Suddenly, when I am at the gym, I start getting snaps like your arms are so hot and you have an incredible butt and things like that. I tell her to stop because it makes me uncomfortable. She does it anyway. She also started using equipment close to me so she can be near me and will always talk to me, especially when doing things like cardio. I tell certain people about it. They don't think it's a big deal. She's also bipolar, is married, but supposedly getting divorced. Has 2 boyfriends on the side and is freaking with another married guy. I want nothing to do with that. That chick be cray cray. You be right to stay away. Sometime in 2003 I got a random chat request on Yahoo Messenger from a woman named something like Sunny69. I assumed she was a website bot, so I responded with a vulgar message. To my surprise she was not a bot, and we ended up chatting enough that she gave me her phone number that night. The phone number was from an area code several hundred miles away. so I told her that I wasn't good with phone calls and would rather just chat on Messenger. Months go by and we continue chatting as internet friends. We know each other's first names and where we live. No big deal. Then one day a woman I worked with hit on me out of the blue and gave me her phone number. I was interested in her, so that night I casually mentioned it to my internet buddy Sunny69. This was apparently not something that Sunny69 wanted to hear. Maldibus. Guess what? I got this chick's digits today at work. Kinda nervous, but I'm gonna call her because she's totally my type. Sunny69. What the fricking frick? You fricking said you don't like to talk on the phone. Maldibus. WTF, calm down Sunny. Sunny69. You're a fricking liar. How could you do this to me? Maldibus. Sunny, you can't be serious, we live hundreds of miles apart. Sunny69. I fricking hate you. We're not that far apart. I drive to your town all the time. IT could have worked out, you fricking butthole. Sunny69 has gone offline. I never heard from her again. Thank God. About 10 years ago I pulled into a gas station and filled up. A woman approached me with her 2 young children, probably about 6 and 8. She asked if I could bring them to her car a couple of blocks away. I wasn't too anxious about her intentions considering she had 2 little kids with her. She's probably not planning to carjack me, so I agreed and we piled into my truck. In the 2 blocks of driving she grilled me about what I did for a living and where I went to college, and magically she was interested in the same career, but of course wasn't actually in that career, or trained in it, or really knew anything about it. By the time we were getting her kids into her car I was very suspicious that she had some kind of mental instability. She asked for my phone number in case she needed advice about software development. Sorry to whoever had the number 1 digit off from mine. Hopefully she wasn't too insistent that she knew you. Oh, and her kids spilt sunflower kernels all over the backseat of the truck in that 2 blocks. This story makes me sad because I'm imagining a single mother struggling with 2 kids coming up with a strategy to meet respectable men with good jobs that involves doing as you described. Had an ex drive some 2 hours to surprise knock on my door and deliver a wreath of garlic which she went out of her way to tell me she didn't poison. When my girlfriend puts her jumper on she lets it get stuck on her head, then makes angry ape noises, and it creeps me out and scares me. This was like quickly going to RI bleach in the midst of some messed up stories. A few Halloweens ago, I was about 26. I was dressed as a Pikachu. My costume was sparse, consisting only of some very short shorts and wire wrapped in yellow duct tape for the tail. Everything else was just skin with yellow coloring on it. My roommate, dressed as Squirtle, and I had stopped by a bar in East Atlanta Village for a shot before we jumped in an Uber and headed out for the evening to our regular spot. While I was waiting for the drinks at the bar, my roommate standing generally behind me, I felt one of the people I was sandwiched between on my right run their hand down my arm. Not thinking much of it, I passed a shot to my roommate. We downed them together, and I placed the glasses on the counter and waited for the bartender so I could pay. I then feel a hand fondling my right pec, then playing with pinching my nipple. I look to my right and see a woman with a huge grin on her face. Not trying to make a scene, I shrugged my shoulder to break her grasp. I turned to my left to look at my roommate and mouth WTF. He was confused and laughing. Then I felt a hand grabbing my butt. I turned around to face the woman, now breaking her butt grasp, and asked her to please stop. I turned to face the bartender to give him my card, and I put my back to the woman. I then feel a hand slide around my waist and firmly grab my dong over my shorts. She then starts massaging. I turn back towards the bar and I stick my butt out and away, again breaking her contact. I know words will do nothing at this point, so I just look to my roommate in awe. He's equally awestruck. I turn back towards the bar, as my credit card receipt just arrived. As I'm signing, she leans over and starts to lick my nipple while simultaneously shoving her hand inside my shorts and massaging my dong. I quickly finish signing while squirming away from her, leave, and go try and find a girl who knew what consent was. This experience gave me context and an extreme appreciation for how freaking disgusting the comments like look how they were dressed. They were asking for it. In no way did I ever view that as a reasonable explanation as to why someone would engage in unwanted touching or worse. but experiencing it firsthand gives it the weight of personal experience. I was just out with my friend, trying to have a good time. An adult male dressed as a Pikachu, but this woman thought it was okay to touch me based on how I looked. Being almost twice this woman's size, I didn't feel overtly threatened, but that in no way invites her actions. I can't even imagine the fear and anxiety that would be if her and I had swapped places and actions. I worked at a neighborhood car rental place. It was in a crappy part of town. I was clearly moved there because they wanted black men working there again. Crappy part of town. We literally had to buzz people in. Only 2 of us worked there, so there was a decent amount of time I was in there alone. Well, one day, a woman comes in and is asking for a free car. Basically she is whoring herself out. Literally. I'm all alone and there with a woman clearly on drugs and wasn't her first time being a prostitute. It was awkward as heck. I was sitting at a dive bar with 2 friends last weekend. We were sitting down, talking and taking Snapchats. 2 girls in their early 20s who were in the bar walked to us and one of them said, "Were you filming us?" We weren't. So I turn my head toward her and say, "Sorry, what?" She replied, "That's what I thought," and punched me in the face. By the time I realized what was going on, they were running out the bar laughing. The bartender chased them, but they got into a car and left before she had time to grab their license plate. I'm quite impulsive. If that happened to me, whatever was in my hand would be launched at her head. In my old apartment a few years back, a girl would always ride the elevator up to the same level as mine at the same time each day. Once we stepped off, we would go our different directions. Typically she would do quick glances in my direction and stare when I didn't look back. I thought whatever all the time because I typically had my carrot cake, so I was in a good mood. This happened every day for about 4 months. Later on, just by chance, mainly missing things from my room, I figured out not only does she not live on that floor, she didn't live in my apartment building. One day she didn't get on the elevator at the usual time, and I thought whatever. When I got back to my room, I could see her silhouette inside sitting on my bed. I noped out of there, reported her, but to my knowledge she was never seen again around the premises. She left in a hurry, I believe, because she left one of her bags that had my clothes in them. How I knew she didn't live there: she was in one of my photos at a party I was at when I had first moved to town. I used that so they could try and track her down. My apartment verified that she didn't live on the floor and they didn't have a resident that looked like her. My apartment had 4 doors total. 1 solid wood, 1 that you couldn't see through upon entering, but 3 doors to each of my roommates' rooms. Each of these doors were made partially of glass so you could see if someone was inside. Also, on how I knew she was staring when I didn't look back, the elevator always made a reflection so I could see her movements even when I didn't directly look at her. I never found out how she got into my apartment. We got all the locks changed, but we never found out how she got through the main door and then through my personal door. IDK, what's more interesting, the carrot cake or the fact she doesn't live in the apartment? There has been a few times actually, from being groomed by a woman in her 30s when I was 14 to just a few years ago a woman from a hen party full on stuck her hand down my jeans and pulled on my Johnson a few times. Also had more than one woman put their hand up my kilt and grab my balls for no apparent reason. Put their hand up my kilt? You must be from Australia. Had a boss who held my career hostage to force me to have a physical relationship with her that lasted for about a year. Long story, and a lot of crap happened. Lots of creepy stuff. Despite everything that happened, the creepiest part was when she'd make out with me. She was like a lion looking at piece of meat. Heavy, silent breathing, transfixed eyes, getting all over me. Really creepy crap. I guess a tie would be when I was pinned down by her and she was trying to push her finger up at me. I kept telling her to stop. When I said no, she whispered back yes. Runner up to all that was when I was in a bar and some moderately attractive girl started talking to me, so I stopped to chat her up. Eventually she revealed she had a boyfriend and was really trying to set me up with her fat ugly friend. Said fat ugly friend never said a freaking word the entire time, and neither did the boyfriend, who eventually joined us. At one point she forced my arm onto her friend's breast. I had enough at that point and walked off, but I'm still creeped out by that whole situation. It was really weird, especially since that boyfriend and the ugly chick never said a word and looked out of it. I was a bouncer in college. Anytime a bachelorette party came through, I knew I was headed straight to Molestville. It was disgusting. Wasn't really creepy, but I had a random girl in the mall run her hand across my chest as she passed by. Her friend followed and yelled, "She thinks you're hot," in my face. The only time something like that ever happened to me, it was simultaneously surreal and hilarious. Should have shouted back, I know, but I can do better. My wife and I simultaneously starting singing Someone's in the Kitchen with Dinah with no explanation, so I guess I creeped her out too. The creepiest one here, emo. Ever since I started working out like 5 or 6 years ago and built myself a body, women seem to think it's okay to feel me up. 2 times I have had my butt grabbed, and 2 times I have had my junk grabbed. Every time they seemed surprised that I had a problem with it, as if all men want to be groped without their consent. A girlfriend of mine introduced me to her friend and we went to the bar. My friend told her friend that I was a big Neutral Milk Hotel fan, so this girl, let's call her Zoe, shows me her tattoo and looks longingly into my eyes as I exclaim how cool that is. She says nothing and sits next to me when we get a table. Everyone is talking and I'm trying to include her, but she just stares the whole time, like, never looking away. I make eye contact a few times and then she and my friend get up to go to the bathroom or whatever. They come back and Zoe starts talking, but she's just talking about her mental problems and the meds she has to take. I am polite, but this girl is starting to creep me out. The night goes on, and as we exchange goodbyes she hugs me and starts weeping. I pretend not to notice and get in my car. I feel bad for the girl, but Jesus, it was weird. This is an afterthought, but relevant. I don't know if other people experience this, but I just realized how often people will open up to me without really even knowing me. Was at the bar last week and one of my sister's friends was coming on to me, but then immediately started going off about her ex and her poor relationship with her parents. Maybe I should feel honored people will tell me these things, but it's an instant mood killer and I'll lose all interest while friends push me to make a move. Female attention is relatively new to me since I lost a bunch of weight and grew a beard and ponytail, so maybe this is actually common. Frick, I hope not. Impossible to make a real connection when all you can say is, "That sucks," or, "I'm sorry to hear that." I love you, Jesus Christ. Coupled with female neckbud boss in her compact stick shift car and she kept accidentally slowly rubbing my leg with her pinky and kept suggesting we skip the meeting and go to her house and play board games. Week. Board games lol. There was a girl I was nice to in high school because she was the class S and people kinda ignored her. Despite all my female friends' warnings, I became her friend. Things took a pretty bad turn after she stole my varsity soccer jersey and started wearing it around. Then she invited me over and tried to undress in front of me, even though I had told her I wasn't interested. Final straw was she got a job at the same Dairy Queen I was working at and started telling everyone that she was going to jump my bones. She got fired and I stopped talking to her. I think she had some major daddy issues and I still feel bad, but at 16 I was not equipped to handle all that. I was working as a bartender at a pretty quiet bar when a obese loud woman came in with a few other normal size normal volume women, and before she had a chance to get drunk, proceeded to tell me graphically how she would like to frick me. It got weirder when my female boss basically heard the commotion, came over and joined in the fun banter. I can only imagine if genders were reversed in that scenario, it would sound as creepy as it felt. Restraining a MD out girl to a bed. She was absolutely off her face on drugs. She was alternating between "come on handsome, take me home and I'll let you tie me to your bed instead and let me the frick go or I will eat your fricking babies be." I had a substitute teacher once describe to the class about her interest in edible panties, then single me out and say, "You know what I'm talking about. You look like a freak." I was 13. Met a girl through a mutual friend who became obsessed with me shortly after meeting for the first time. She began texting me constantly and asked to hang out all the time even after telling her I wasn't interested. The creepiest thing she did was stand out in front of my house and wait for me to either come home or leave, all the while sending me text after text. After telling her to frick off enough times she left me alone, but I was still pretty sketched out at the time. While on a hike, I went to this peak of this hill from where the view of the city's skyline was visible. A middle-aged woman who had daughters aged 22, 17 and 10, I'm 19 years old BTW, asked me for my number and if she wanted to hang out or something. When I told her how old I was, she said that I'm really young, and despite that, she was still thinking ways of hanging out with me and fricking or something. I said her that I'll meet her on the other side of the hill as I'm taking photos at the moment. As she went, I went away from the other side and never came back to that place in months now. This incident happened in the United States BTW. I used to feel silly telling people why I didn't do karaoke at this one bar in Vancouver anymore. This woman and I were sort of hitting it off and I mentioned I was a virgin. She grabbed my hand and shoved it down her pants. I immediately pulled it out. I looked at the 6 other people at the table, maybe somewhere more private. She went to the guy directly across the table from me and he was more accommodating. They headed off to the bathrooms and I headed into 5 months of depression because I can't even get physically shamed right. I had this girl come into the restaurant every day for a coffee in Melbourne. She never really gave me a second look or paid me any special attention. She was gorgeous though and very shy. One day she came in shortly before I finished and a couple of us sat with her and had a drink because it was her birthday. She ended up hammered after like 2 drinks. I eventually left to go meet some friends and I got a text from her saying that she was in love with me and all she wanted for her birthday was me. It was a little creepy but also really sad. I felt terrible. As a woman, this is actually quite educational. The reason I said that is just in case I've done something like this, I want to take responsibility. And if I think something might be cool, that is clearly unwelcome. I'm not going there. As a male, this is also very educational for me. When I was younger I often stayed over at a friend's house. His house wasn't very large, so when I crashed over it was usually on the sofa in the lounge. His sister was a few years older. AMD obviously took a shine to me. She would regularly act flirtatious around me, but at the time I didn't realize how much so. One night she was left in charge of sitting us while their mother was out. After we had all gone to bed, she came downstairs and I woke up to her mouth around my dong. When she realized I had woken up, she told me to be quiet and covered my mouth and proceeded to mount me. It didn't last long, but has really fricked me up for years. And that was how I unwillingly lost my virginity to a 17-year-old girl when I was 12. When I was high school, there was this creepy, but attractive girl that would make jokes about marrying me, having my children and eating them. This was a pretty common theme from her, and she would often make obscene innuendos, slap her butt in front of me, etc. All of this in front of friends and classmates. One day, she even asked about how my friend, who was on rough times, staying with me, and I would masturbate since we shared a room. I was a shy kid. That stuff creeped me out real good. Years back, I got into a car with a group of friends and a girl held a knife to my throat as a joke and said I could fricking kill you. I yelled out, "Get that freaking thing off my neck," until she did, then booted her out of the car. She later tried giving me crap at school, saying I overreacted to her joke, and I was like, even if you were joking, you don't hold a freaking knife to someone's neck. That stuck, and she started to be crappy towards me every day, basically blaming me for her having a bit of a psycho reputation. I didn't even know her before that happened. Confusing as frick. For the record, I don't think she actually wanted to kill me, but I wouldn't discount that she got off on it somehow. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.